calling all psychonauts. May you enjoy the days through the haze. Enjoy what is now. This episode of the Slightly Fuzzed podcast is sponsored by Bud Tea Company, a cannabis apparel brand from Maine. Check them out at budteeco.com. That's BUDTEECO.com. Or follow them on Instagram at budteeco. Tell them Slightly Fuzz sent you. All right. Doomsday Profit. What's up?
Oh man, we are recovering from this past weekend. It's been a few days, but I feel like the recovery is it's a real thing. Cosmic Reaper is they will show you a good time.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they wiped the stage all three shows.
I think we got better just by being in their proximity for a couple days.
That's a good thing.
I think so.
Hopefully it doesn't wear off.
Keep the momentum going. Channel the Cosmic Reaper.
Yeah? You guys playing around North Carolina?
We're trying to stretch our tendrils a little bit more into the southeast. So this past weekend we did a short run to celebrate the album release. 3 days with Cosmic Reaper, but we had a bunch of other great bands along the way. We played in Duluth, Georgia with Big Oaf and Dope Goat, which was super fun. That was a really fun show for a lot of reasons. But I think the highlight was probably yet to come, because we played Asheville with US Christmas at Static Age Records, which was just phenomenal. And then we came home and we got a bunch of our friends to play a 6-band Sunday afternoon matinee.
Nice.
So we had us and Cosmic Reaper and Witch Tit on the main stage, and then upstairs we had Cult Icon, who does a really cool like instrumental post-rock, noise rock, doom amazingness. Nora Rogers from the band Solar Halos did a solo cello set, which was amazing.
Nice.
And Spencer Lee from the band Make debuted his new solo project Machnovist, which is sort of like all of the best, heaviest parts of Sun, Early Earth, and Boris all rolled into one act that is more amplifier than man.
That's a very eclectic group of musicians that you're rattling off here.
Yeah, it was everything that I always like want shows to be, except packed. It was a good crowd, but the Poorhouse, the venue where we played, is a sizable room. But it was, so we had a good crowd. Everybody was just good vibes all around, and
Cool.
some really great music.
Yeah, it was a nice kind of way to end our long weekender. A nice hometown afternoon show with a bunch of friends.
Yep, and then we're taking a couple weeks for holidays and stuff, and then we're right back at it. We've got a few local shows in December. And
were you doing one with Empty Black? Because I had Empty Black on here. I thought you did something with Empty Black.
We are. So we'll be playing with them at Sabbath Brewing next month on the 10th. And that's right after the show with Resin in Richmond.
Ah, yeah.
So yeah, our friends in Lair hooked that one up. They're playing again with Resin in Asheville on the 12th. So we put a couple dates together for the 9th and 10th. And then the 11th, we're sort of doing a warm-up show, I guess you could call it, in Asheville with Ape Vermin and a new band called Istari, which is like the Appalachian Earthless. They're brand new, but they're awesome. And and then we're home, and we're warming up for that show with stops at Kraken Fest at the Kraken in Chapel Hill, and opening for Black Tusk at the Poorhouse in Raleigh. So,
dude, I didn't really know Black Tusk super well, and over the summer I saw him at Wake Brewing in Rock Island with Bongzilla.
Nice.
Holy shit, man.
I'm super jealous.
I was like an instant fan of Black Tusk after I left there. I mean, those guys destroyed that place. It was awesome.
Yeah, and they're lifers, man. They've been around forever, constantly touring, just sort of like there's so much to admire about that band, obviously musically, but just their outright tenacity.
I mean, you listen to like the records and like they're great, but seeing them live was like totally different. They're one of those bands that just sounds so much better live, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
a lot of bands are that
definitely
way,
think
but man,
that's probably their comfort zone.
yeah, it was
You play a couple
fucking
hundred
gnarly.
shows a year, that's bound to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a hell of a lineup that you have put together of shows.
Yeah,
Brian's been working his ass off. He'll be modest about it, but
I
he's put
may
a
have
lot
bitten
of
off more than we can chew, but it'll be a trial by fire.
Yeah. Any mishaps? You guys killing it or figuring it out?
Knock on wood, no mishaps yet. We are
Well, I mean, if you count the first show back at Art Bar, when
I don't count that.
What?
He said he doesn't count that.
You don't count that? Okay. Since that was the first show back when I completely blew out my speaker cab on the first track.
Oh, that wasn't a mishap though. I mean, it wasn't supposed to happen, but it turned out well because one, it made you get a better cab.
That is true.
Two, it made us like forever in the debt of Bog Monkey for saving the day. And we stretched out the song that would become Bring Out Your Dead on the record. So there you go. It was meant to be.
Silver lining turning cabs into 10-minute drone songs.
Yeah, and none of the mishaps happened until after we played. So,
I mean, yeah.
It's not too bad. So you have a new album. This is your debut, right? In Idle Orbit. You had a demo or something out before that, I guess, but this is kind of your big debut, right?
Yes, this is our first trip to the studio. The demo was kind of stuff that we cobbled together. We had some friends that recorded a few minutes from shows and stuff that we'd put together in the practice room. But yeah, this was our first finished product, if you will. We're pretty proud of it.
The demo we released kind of because we were itching to get into the studio in 2020 and record our first EP or first record, but then the pandemic happened. But we really wanted to get something out, so we put the demo out, realizing we weren't going to go into the studio that summer, and kind of went back into effectively hibernation. Did some, solo practicing and worked on some new songs, and I think it all worked out for the better with the final product that we have with In Idle Orbit.
Agreed.
It's super like relentlessly heavy and just like hopeless. And what's funny is that you look at your Instagram and it's all memes and fun and funny, and they couldn't be further from each other.
I think a lot of our memes are pretty cynical.
Okay, fair enough. Sure.
But I don't know. You got to laugh to keep from crying, right? You look at the state of the world and
yeah.
No, I mean, yes, I think we have sort of a negative outlook on a lot of things. Certainly funneling it into heavy music is as trite as it is. It's also true to say that it's a cathartic thing for me to get up and play really loud and yell into a microphone and into the faces of a willing audience. And it's fun to do that. It's a release of a lot of that negative energy. But I don't think we're like bummer dudes generally. Certainly we try not to be.
Well, that's what's funny kind of about just like this genre in general is that talking to the people in it and just seeing the people on social media, which, didn't exist X amount of years ago, everyone's just normal dudes and women as well. But, everyone has a sense of humor and they're goofy and they're funny and they're nerds and they're, just, it's not like just this heavy, dismal, dark shit all the time. You get to know people on social media and you see like their real colors and stuff like that. It's
I think a lot of these things kind of go hand in hand. You get into horror, or you get into sci-fi movies, comic books, games like D&D or Magic the Gathering or video games, and you sort of you get comfortable exploring difficult subjects in sort of fantastical realms. whether it's an Iron Maiden record or playing Diablo 3 or whatever you're doing. And, I think it's just an extension of that sort of coping mechanism. We never try to take ourselves too seriously.
Our name is literally a wordplay.
Yeah, it's a pun. Like we're not allowed to take ourselves too seriously after that.
I wanted to ask you about the name too, because for the longest time, I see you guys come up on Instagram, whatever, and I'm just like, oh, Doomsday Profit, someone that prophesizes about Doomsday. Got it. And then, when I started like talking to you about doing the podcast and stuff, I was like, hold on a second. That's not how you spell profit. This is like about like money. This is like profit, like making money. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't see that before, but I didn't notice.
Yeah, we get to. I like playing with it. We called our little run with Cosmic Reaper the Reaping Profits Tour, which is especially ironic because I think we definitely did not do that. I think maybe we broke even.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't feel bad about how it went in terms of turnouts and everything. Gas is expensive right now. It is what it is.
Yeah. Vandolph the Brown is a thirsty motherfucker.
Vandolph is quite thirsty.
You guys have a sweet van?
Yeah, we tour in a 1984 Dodge Prospector.
Have you posted pictures of this thing?
Brown.
Have I seen this thing yet?
We've posted a few
Okay.
Adoring portraits of Vandolph. He is our trusty steed. He's never early, nor is he late. He arrives exactly when he means to. It is sort of a cozy van that we've all grown to love, and he's carried us safely and reliably. I'm knocking on wood so far. So many thanks to Vandolph and to our drummer Trad for being his custodian.
I was reading Dave Grohl's book, The Storyteller, that he put out, and he was talking about vans, and he has that documentary about vans too. But he was talking about how in his first band, they would configure everything so it just fit, but then someone would like sleep on like the top like wood plank that was in there, and someone would sleep in there overnight to make sure no one steals their shit and all that kind of stuff. Are you guys sleeping in the van? Are you going on any long trips with it yet, or haven't had to experience some of that stuff with it?
Yeah, I think the longest trip that we have planned will be the drive from Richmond to Atlanta. And fortunately for us, home is halfway between them. So
okay,
we'll stop off at home, give everybody, van included, a little bit of a rest, and then get back to it. So no, it hasn't been a huge issue yet. We're fortunate enough to, in most cases, be able to crash with friends and touch base with people we haven't seen for a while, which is always, that's one of the biggest draws of doing it, is getting to go see friends in other cities and scream at them for a little bit and then have drinks and hugs and all that fun stuff.
Do you have anything planned for further out yet, or is that we're not quite there yet?
I think our plan, generally speaking, is going to be to do a couple shows, like 1 or 2 shows a month for the most part. We'll probably slow down a little bit at the early parts of the year just because we want to write the next record. We have a couple new things we've started working on, and kind of want to put a bow on that so we can go in and record next summer. Trad's other band, Crystal Spiders, is still kind of figuring out what they're doing next year. I think they may be trying to get over to Europe at some point, so that will affect our scheduling. But by and large, I think the 1 weekend a month, I told my wife, it's kind of like, just imagine I'm in the National Guard. Like 1 weekend a month, 1 week a year, we're covered.
Yeah. I read your bio on your website. Maybe I can pull it up real quick. I was like, I need to get better at like describing people's projects, because I have a lot of people come on here and I'm just like, it was awesome, it was cool, it was heavy,
That's all we really want to hear.
Yeah. This is not what you have on your website, though. It's beautiful. Someone wrote this. It is very good. Did you write this, Brian? I know you have like a journalism background. Did you write this?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got input
So
from the rest of the band, but that's my writing.
it's like, yeah, it starts off like the blind oracles of legend. The North Carolina acid sludge quartet Doomsday Profit offers a dark vision of an even darker future. Blah, 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 says some more stuff. Into the desperate present, Doomsday Prophet emerges, offering its meditation and anger in idle orbit. The debut EP floods its dystopian visions with snarling psychedelic grit and deep dredged sludge riffs that call to mind the relentless pummeling of Conan, as well as the cosmic excursions of Earthless, the bad trip acid rock of Church of Misery, as well as the scuzzy blues of Dope Throne. And it goes on. That is a well-written description of any band. And I need to take lessons because I'm always like, this is awesome.
You're making me
It's
blush.
heavy. It's so good.
Well, I mean, it helps if you spend about going on 25 years of my life now being a absolutely uncurable music nerd. Just like listening to every band and absorbing all of the trivia and drawing all the parallels, like, oh, well, you know, this sounds like the side B from the obscure single that Sam Hain did in 1978, but it's got a little bit more of that like Flower Traveling Band groove, and nobody knows what I'm talking about, and fewer people care. But
yeah. But I see a lot of people describe different musics whenever I read reviews or anything, and they're just like crushing riffs. I hear crushing riffs a lot. There's always crushing riffs, and
Hauntingly
it's all,
beautiful. Let's see, what are some of the other ones? You get the
Oh, I feel like I'm guilty of that one.
It's hard not to be. That's kind of my point. Is that like when people like are on here, I'm just like, man, it's great. You have some crushing riffs in there.
Music's hard to write about. It's I'm paraphrasing, but you know, the old adage is writing about music is like dancing about architecture. You can't really do it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a good point. Yeah, I mean,
the best you can do is try to compare it
too.
to other music to give some
Yeah.
context. But that all depends
and
on
I've
you know,
tried
the
that
other
too,
person
and I
knowing what you're talking about.
I feel like and I've said this before on the podcast, I always feel like it's kind of like this lazy cop out to be like, your stuff sounds like so and so stuff, and it's like it's not fair to do that to them, even because they're probably like, well, hey man, we're our own band, like don't just compare us to someone else's stuff all the time. And I don't want to do that, you know, but it is kind of like the easiest route to go, like, yours sounds like that. So people go immediately like, oh, okay, I know what that is. And then you can go into more descriptive things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, what elements of this and that, and how do you put it in a frame of mind that I go, look, I know it's not Black Sabbath, but there's elements of Sabbath in what they do, particularly in, say, the guitar riffs, or you know, it kind of borrows that oppressiveness of Conan. It just feels like it weighs on you in a way that Conan does, which is one of the things that Conan does that everybody tries to copy, us included. You know, if I could get a power chord to hit as heavy as any one of theirs, I feel like I could retire. That's, you know, so I personally, I have no issue with folks comparing our music to other bands. I do. A lot of our stuff is borrowed, and at least inspired by other bands.
Yeah.
And heck, maybe I'll find a new band that I haven't heard yet.
Right. Yeah. And it's also pretty subjective. I mean, there's been plenty of times where someone will describe a band to me using that same method and be like, you got to hear this. It sounds like Queens of Stone Age. And then I mean, I just don't hear that at all. And I'm like, it's strange how everyone can hear the same thing and reference it to a different band very differently. So
well, you reference it to the closest thing that you know. And so it's kind of dependent on what else you're familiar with and what the person you're talking to is familiar with.
Yeah. Like if you if you've only heard Queens of Stone Age and you haven't heard Uncle Acid, you know, you're only going to go so far on like the spectrum of stoner rock or whatever. It's like,
exactly. Which is why most people find people like me absolutely insufferable.
Well, I loved the description. I was a fan, and I immediately realized I need to expand my vocabulary talking about people's music to them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's very flattering.
Yeah. So I read in that, I think the same page, that you have a background in music journalism. So what was that like? Did you work for like a paper or magazine, or what were you doing with that?
Yeah, so I started writing about music when I was an undergrad in college. I signed up for the student newspaper because my friend told me I could get CDs for free if I reviewed them. That turned out to be a blessing and a curse. Blessing because I got a lot of free CDs, a curse because it just made the addiction worse. And it really just kind of built from there. I started writing for the local alt weekly really as soon as I graduated and was done at the student paper. I worked for a couple of years with a startup magazine called Shuffle that was focused on specifically music in the Carolinas region. And as I was doing that, I was freelancing for publications like Magnet and Paste Magazine and other local alt weeklies around the area. So yeah, probably about, I guess, 10 plus years of doing that, kind of letting my my ears take me where they want to go, and my mail, whatever people sent that looked intriguing, I would listen to and try to review. And
What was it for, reviews, or did you write like focus pieces on bands and different things?
All of the above. I did.
Okay.
I did a lot of blurbs to preview shows to say, hey, this band's coming next week. Here's kind of what to expect, which is a really great exercise for trying to like condense your descriptions into a few words. Because typically with those, we get anywhere from like 50 to 100 words to describe a full bill.
Sure. Yeah.
Record reviews, long and short form, interviews, features, sort of like music business features, that kind of thing.
I was talking to Ryan Garney from High Desert Queen on here, and we were talking about reviews. They were getting reviews for their new album, and I was like, I don't see negative reviews anymore from like anything less than like the big Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, that kind of stuff. Like I don't see any negative reviews. Did you experience that when you were writing? I mean, did they tell you like, listen, just say it's good so that they
no,
in the future?
Or
like what's the reason behind that?
That never happened. I never had an editor say like, you got to say this is good even if it sucks.
Did you write bad reviews?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Different people have different philosophies on it. I think as the blogging and podcasting, as it's become more atomized, it's become the editorial direction seems to be more about not promoting. I hate when bands would ask like, hey, could you promote this, help us promote this record? No, I'll review it, but my job is not to promote it.
Right.
At the same time, what you choose to cover is sort of the first distinction. If you don't get bad reviews, you just get ignored. But at the level of bands that I was mostly trying to write about, small, touring or local, particularly hardcore metal, that kind of band, there's no reason to kick a band that nobody's heard of. Like, just don't write about them, because from a reader's perspective, it's like, okay, oh look, there's a band I've never heard of and they suck. Okay, like,
yeah,
it's a lot more interesting to be like, oh, here's a new band that sounds like they're really cool, I should check it out.
But I've also found like I feel like sometimes I'll go, oh, that's a pretty good review, 4 stars or something. I'll go check that out, and it's subjective. But also, I'm like, that was like 1, 2 stars max. Come on,
Yeah. Well,
and I'm like, is everyone being so positive because they're like afraid to piss off the bands that they think will help them down the road? Are they afraid to piss off the bands that might help them promote their thing that they're doing, or like?
I'll say
I get it. Like even as like slightly fuzzed, I'm like, I don't talk about bands that I don't like. I only talk about bands that I like. So like, I don't have to really worry about it. But if people were asking me to review shit, and I was like, man, that Doomsday Profit was like pretty shitty, I mean, you guys wouldn't come on my podcast. So like, why would I do that? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
I come on the
don't think
podcast still.
yeah, we'd still come on the podcast.
Yeah.
We
I can
we
make
could
it
have some
make it
words. We
fun.
could have some words about it, Ryan. No,
Wait, were you talking to him or me?
I was talking to him.
Oh, okay.
I would hope that the lack of negative reviews is not influenced by anything other than authentic enthusiasm for the music. I would
Yeah.
hope people are being honest about what they're hearing. I think for a brand new band with a debut, again, bands that people haven't really heard of, there's not really any reason to write a negative review.
That's true.
Once a band has reached a certain level of popularity or something's really hyped and you disagree, then it becomes an interesting point of discussion to be like, I don't see what all the hype is about. I think this is actually kind of mediocre. That kind of balances the scales. And I think, for a music fan and somebody who likes to like argue and nerd out about records and bands and stuff, just to be like, now we're talking about it instead of everybody just being like, oh yeah, great job, great record, I love it, so good.
Yeah.
I want to meet the guy that's like, yeah, actually I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, because I do find it interesting to know what people's perspectives are. Like, where did this album miss? Where did it really hit the nail on the head, and then they missed later on, or like I want to hear that kind of stuff. I don't always want to just hear the positive shit, but you're right. Like, I mean, there's no reason to like just review some debut from some small band and be like, it's fucking sucked. Like, it's just kind of bogus. So, all right,
like,
fair enough.
I mean, because honestly, who cares? Like, there's so many unknown, terrible bands that can, they can just remain unknown and nobody's bothered. I want to hear, if it's a new band, I want to hear about what's really great and what's really exciting. And if it's a well-known band, let's start taking the kid gloves off a little bit. You've been around the block. People already know who you are. They know what to expect. And, if you're messing with those expectations, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like a band like Monolord, everybody in this genre knows and has feelings about, generally positively. Like I'd love to, hear the other take of that. And I don't think they would be harmed by that. I think it would hopefully come to the point that it's more beneficial in terms of potentially feedback that you can take as an artist and incorporate, or getting their fans riled up and even more excited and engaging with it, or getting people to think about it in a way that they hadn't. That's always
the new Mastodon comes to mind first, because I didn't like the new Mastodon album, and as soon as I heard it, I was like, people are going to call this one a masterpiece. I can feel it. I know it.
Oh yeah, because it's really.
And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all, and I saw a lot of people just loving the shit out of it.
Well, and I mean, they're a big band. There's a lot of people who are going to love it and a lot of people who are going to not like it. And there's, frankly, with Mastodon, there's a lot of people who tuned out probably like 4 or 5 records ago. So
true. Yeah. So Ryan, you are still on a radio show. You have your own radio show?
Yeah. Global Garage on WHUP. It's one of those rare gems, community radio station, all volunteer run. All volunteer DJs. We get to do our own programming. So what we do Sundays 1 to 3, we pre-record our shows primarily, but we focus on playing garage rock, punk rock, psych rock, rock tangential stuff. I just before we hopped on here, I was pre-recording Sunday's show. We had several a pretty solid doom block lined up, but it's been a really cool
this week.
What?
I'll have to
I always throw some doom and heavy psych in at the end.
You always have good stuff. You just
don't listen because that's what friends do, right?
Well, also you tell me about all the stuff you're listening to all week long, so
that's true, because the purpose of the show is to tell people about awesome music that we find.
Yeah, I just get it in advance.
But I started off, with radio in college and really loved the whole college radio thing. But I mean, that was before Spotify, before Bandcamp really took off. So, when I was doing that, when I was program director, GM, and DJ for all 4 years, we were kind of reliant on what we got sent to the music director's office. And it was your typical college indie stuff, which is primarily typically 4 to 5 white dudes from either the US or the UK, maybe Australia and Canada. But there is so much more out there. And what we really wanted to do was explore that with Global Garage. And thanks to the growth of platforms like Bandcamp, we're able to source some really awesome music that otherwise hadn't crossed the borders or wouldn't have crossed the borders. Like there's some awesome like garage psych shit going on in France. There's some really compelling stuff going on in Mongolia. I'm not just talking about The Who, which has blown up recently, but like bands like Mohanik, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is kind of more of like a post-punk band that just has some really interesting rhythms and sounds. And, you get into the Japanese psych scene, New Zealand with like the new Dunedin and Christchurch revivals going on. Mexico City is like this explosive garage psych scene that's just ready to blow up onto the world stage. So it's been really cool diving into that. And I like to do a lot of traveling, I guess, in the before times. And I'd bring my little Zoom recorder and try to meet up with bands and do interviews. And so it's been really cool. I interviewed, one of my favorite interviews was probably a Mythic Sunship, if you're familiar, from Denmark, heavy psych band.
They played Roadburn, right?
Yeah, they played that. I interviewed them like a few weeks before, like when they were about to head out to Roadburn. But kind of like that free psych saxophone, just awesome psych rock.
Yeah. So you get to do really cool interviews, you get to play music, you get to kind of have free reign of like an hour or so on the radio, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Cool. We have 2 hours that we fill. I've been kind of slacking lately because I've been more focused on getting this new record out. But during the pandemic, we started doing co-hosted episodes. So I connected with musicians and I guess musician tangential people from all around the world to put together playlists and basically be my co-host, and we'll talk about music, talk about their band, talk about the music that they picked. And it was kind of a really cool exercise, especially when everything was so isolated, to be able to connect with people even beyond where I would normally have conversations.
Yeah, for sure. When I was in college, we had a pretty good college radio station. Like, I think it won some awards as far as college stations go and stuff. Nice. And I was a junior. A lot of my friends had already been in it all 4 years. They were in college to be like communication broadcasting majors and stuff. And yeah. I just thought it was cool. I love music. I could be on the radio and I could play shit that I want. It sounds great. Well, since I was the new guy, they gave me the 2 a.m. to the 6 a.m. shift. And it was basically us just like me and my friends coming back from the bars or a party, stumbling into the radio station, playing like the 5 longest songs we could find, and then standing outside smoking cigarettes while they played.
Yep. Like, you go find that one like 20-minute free jazz song, throw that on while you go look for the next thing.
Yeah. And like people would call in and they'd be hammered and be like, hey, you gotta play this song. And I'm just like, all right, delete, like next time. And like, I don't know. I wanted it to be for me so bad, but I was just like so not interested in it, especially from 2 to 6 in the morning. I just couldn't do it. But
I had a similar experience. I did it. I think it was either 2 to 6 or 3 to 6. Yeah. Fortunately, nobody called in. That was a perk. But yeah, just those late hours, and I don't know. It was putting together playlists is fun, but when you have to do it on a weekly basis, it gets to be a lot for me.
Which is why I have to shout out Paul and Chris, who are my co-hosts for Global Garage, who helped me immensely by sourcing music, especially on weeks when I am on tour.
Do you think that radio is kind of leaning the direction of podcasts and stuff, being more open to longer form interviews or like wider audiences of music and things like that, because for so long, and especially if you're not in a cool like hip city like Asheville or Austin or something like that, their stations are terrible. I mean, even in Chicago, and I'm not from Chicago, but I'm from Illinois, we had a station in the Quad Cities where I was from that there was like a rock station, and you know exactly what that means. I mean, it's Nickelback and it's Puddle of Mud, and you hear Def Leppard at least like 3 times every hour. It's like so much.
Oh, yeah.
And even in Chicago, I don't even know if they have a rock station anymore. Like they did for years, and I don't even know if that's still in existence at all. And
yeah, I think we have a classic rock station, which it bothersomely now plays like 90s rock. And it's it's pretty dire in the terrestrial radio markets, I think.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, the interesting thing with that, like, I think when we talk about stuff like mainstream radio, I mean, aside from the talk stuff that seems to be taking over generally, I mean, there's not really much of a difference between tuning into your local Clear Channel station and flipping on Pandora 90s hits or whatever the fuck. Like, there's no thought or curation. It's all prescribed stuff based on whatever formula repetition bullshit they're trying to kick out. But
the main difference is your terrestrial radio station occasionally has somebody chime in with some awful jokes.
Well, there's a fuckload of commercials.
The ads.
There's a fuckload of commercials, and then they play the same shit they played last hour.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's an ad for the morning show
one summer over after college, like we had the classic rock station. I'm pretty sure I heard the same fucking Eagles song every hour and a half, like clockwork.
Yeah.
But so there's nothing there. The magic of what made radio what it was in its prime is dead. So you have to go and look at places like WHUP, which is taking really cool people. Like there are some awesome DJs on this station. Like there's a guy that we follow who used to work at the BBC, and he records his show with like the classic mic that they used to make the DJs use, and he goes through like the hits of a certain year, like the actual like pop list, and like there's that personality, there's that knowledge, that experience, that curation that you don't get on a terrestrial radio station. You have stuff like KXP, which is killing it with the live shows. Like KXP is really, I think, a great example of modern radio in the internet world. Like they're really going beyond just what you think of as radio. They're still thought leaders and curators and, you know, taste breakers in that sense. And I think that's where radio is going, should go. And I think there's that kind of intersection with podcasts and just digital media in general.
It's so interesting because radio is such a good product.
Yeah.
On paper. Like you just broadcast it out and people can listen to it in their car, on their lawnmower, on their computer, anything. They can just hear music, and it's made by people that know music. It's such a good product on paper. And they fucked it up so bad. It's unreal.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is, by what metric? And granted, I'm getting a little cynical here, but like as an art product, it's clearly better when you allow the idiosyncrasies of individual choice to dictate the playlist, even within a restrictive format. Ryan, I think you and I had a pretty similar experience where we just hated classic rock and wouldn't listen to stuff from the 60s and 70s for years because the radio formats ruined it. And I just didn't want to hear Sweet Home Alabama ever again.
But the idea of it, someone going, listen, we're going to have a classic rock hour and we're going to play a couple of your hits that you love. We're going to play a Zeppelin song because we know you love Zeppelin. But the other,
play a deep cut and then play some UFO.
50 minutes, the other 50 minutes are going to be filled with shit that I like and you don't know about yet. Radio show,
like play
and it was
Flower
so much
Traveling Band,
not bad.
play T-Rex other
Yeah.
than Bang a Gong. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much great music that, and it wasn't unpopular at the time. Like,
Yeah.
it's so narrow, and you hear Pour Some Sugar on Me 37 times a day, and all of a sudden you have diabetes from that one song.
But you see like
and
people that have their own YouTube channels and do like kind of a radio show type of thing, or doing a podcast or whatever, and they do it like what radio should have done a long time ago. They do it just like that, and you're like, how could you have not figured this out 50 years ago? But
no, it's
to what I was saying earlier about like Austin and maybe Asheville, because it's a similar type of vibe, and probably what you guys are doing at your radio station, from what it sounds like, is like people that know music playing music that you haven't heard yet. And I remember I lived in Austin for a couple of years. I moved from Illinois down there and then moved back. But their radio station down there was awesome. And it was like they had metal song, and then like a college rock song. Then they had a pop song. Then they had a blues song. Then they had a country song. And it was all really good, all of it. And I could just cross genres every time I was in my car. And it was all good stuff because the people that worked there knew their shit really well.
Well, and I think part of it is enthusiasm. I mean, when you have your playlist dictated to you, like, you may like some of it, but you're not picking it. You're not like, you don't have that thrill of, when you hear something for the first time and you like, can't wait to send your friend a text message and be like, go listen to this right now. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like, every DJ should be that person their entire shift.
Yeah.
And then radio would be the greatest thing on the planet. Even if you didn't like the songs, you would like the enthusiasm, and you'd like the personalities that come with it.
Oh man, I guess I really need to up my enthusiasm. I mean, I get enthusiastic, but I'm not like always on. So
nobody's always on, but you know what I mean. Like, you're stoked to share it with people. You're stoked to interview these bands that you think are so cool and like introduce them to your listener base. That's a cool thing. I mean, that's what makes being a music fan so awesome, and it's so fun, so fulfilling, is like you connect with people all over the place because you all like this weird way of decorating air.
I love those little moments of connection. One example that comes to mind is Gina from Minerva is also in a band called Turbo Gato, and I played Turbo Gato on one of our playlists, and a band from New Zealand, PGX, I interviewed her because she was writing, Hannah is writing or working on her PhD in the history of New Zealand music, and she listened to that playlist and was super into Turbo Gato. They started chatting on Facebook post comments. It's like bridging these two bands from South Carolina and New Zealand just because I put a band on a playlist, and that's the kind of shit that I live for. It's just those little moments of connection.
Yeah, it is cool, and there's no better feeling than sharing music with people. I mean, I have my own group of friends that we share music back and forth, and even if we don't like it, it's still cool to like expand your horizons a little bit. And it's kind of what I like doing about Slightly Fuzzed, is that like I have a playlist, I have the podcast, I make posts that involve people's new music and stuff. And either way, however you consume it, preferably, like at least you're hearing new stuff all the time. And it's not always going to be for you. Like there's some really poppy stuff that I like. There's some really sludgy stuff, and there's some really dark stuff and some really light stuff. And it's not going to be for everyone, but it's cool when people send me messages and go, all the dick jokes, the fart jokes, this stuff's funny, but like I get a lot of music recommendations from your channel too. And I'm like, awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's got personality. I mean, that's one thing that I really appreciate, like with what you're doing with the, with the dick jokes and the fart jokes too. That's a great part of it. But like, I feel like I get a bit of your personality, and I'm kind of in on the joke when you make a sack or sack Sabbath.
Sack
with the nut sack on the first record. Like, I thought that was pretty hilarious. I'm pretty sure I sent it to my bandmates, like, check this out. And then you kind of feel like you're part of a tribe, even with people that you don't know yet. You just get to share in jokes and references and a vernacular with each other that the rest of the world maybe doesn't get. Not that they're not invited, just that they haven't clued in yet, and they have yet to see how awesome this little world of ours is.
Yeah, and it is a cool little like community that's stoner metal or whatever on Instagram specifically. I feel like, because I'm not really on Facebook much, and I got on Twitter just to see if I could grow the podcast a little bit, but there's a pretty small community there, it feels like. Whereas on
metal
Instagram,
Twitter is definitely much more death centric.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there's
found.
definitely like that heavy metal group there, but like the stoner stuff is definitely not quite there. Whereas on Instagram, like, man, everyone's just like sharing each other's stuff and supporting each other, commenting on stuff, and then you go to Twitter and it's just crickets, and it's strange.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what goes on Facebook and shit. Like, I'm probably not gonna get on there.
Facebook's got some good groups.
Yeah.
I don't know. Our guitarist Kevin is trying to get us to sign up for TikTok.
Oh no! What are you gonna do on TikTok?
We'll just dance and do all the challenges and stuff. No, we actually were talking about it somewhat seriously about some sort of video component, because we're all gear nerds, and he wanted to just like come up with a riff and then like get whatever band we're playing with to like jam with him for a couple minutes on something that they hadn't heard before, just to mess around and play music, because again, that's the whole thing. Like, we just want to hang out and play music with people. So
yeah. Yep. Well, there's definitely that group of people too that are total gear nerds on Instagram specifically. Like, they'll just like play riffs, and people will like put it up on live, and people will join. They'll talk about specific pedals and amps and stuff that I don't fucking know anything about. And I mean, that's definitely on there. They definitely have that community going.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. The Empty Black guys, we've never met in person, but I already consider them good friends, because we've just been shooting stuff back and forth and commenting on each other's memes for the past 2 years. So when we finally play with them, it'll almost be like closure. Like, like we've
that's kind of how I felt having them on.
Long.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I felt having them on the podcast, was because back when I even started Slightly Fuzz, which was not that long ago, like 6 months ago or something like that, and they were there from the beginning, commenting on stuff and sharing it and liking it and whatever. And so I was just like, all right, those guys are cool. And then when it came time and they had an EP coming out, and I was like, you guys should come on. Like,
the EP
I wouldn't have done.
Good.
I don't think I would have done that if they wouldn't have been so supportive throughout all of it.
Yeah,
honestly.
man, I gotta say, I'm really happy that EP is as good as it is, because if they put out something terrible, I was gonna be like, oh, damn it.
Right.
Yeah. But it's awesome. That EP is so good. I can't wait to play with them. I kind of feel like, Ryan, we should like bring some friends who look nothing like us to like catfish them, just as a joke. Like, just send some other people into the venue before us to introduce themselves as Doomsday Profit.
People like
nothing like your
boat
picture.
shoes or something.
Yeah, you look
figure out how to film it. That could be really funny. Figure out how to film it.
There you go, Kevin. There's an idea.
Have them dressed up like dorks and kind of be dicks too when they meet them, and just film the whole thing. I like it.
Yeah, we went in a new direction. We're an alt country band now. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, it's been super fun. I've really gotten a kick out of kind of getting to know some of the other bands and labels and movers and shakers in the broader doom, stoner, sludge, heavy scene, whatever. I mean, it's all a bunch of nerds who like Dungeons and Dragons and riffs and old comics and horror movies and stuff. Like, it's all my people. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is cool. And I'll say from like my perspective with Slightly Fuzz, like getting to know some of these people just through Instagram, and now especially with the podcast for an hour instead of just texting back and forth, like it's a good community, man. It's a good group of people for sure. And I've said this before, I have been a graphic designer for a long time, and that community is not. It's not like that. At least from where I stood. Maybe I hadn't been embraced yet, but like it was not like that. I don't know. They don't operate the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I have to think part of it is, for the most part, there's kind of a ceiling on the success you can achieve being a doom metal band, which is, that's a two-sided sword. But I think the good thing about it is you don't have the expectations or the competitiveness. Like, I want every band that we play with to be as successful as they can. I want to love, every doom band that I come across. Because I like this type of music. I like the sound. I like playing shows and having people come out and, bang their heads. I think generally the doom audience is a little older, so, we're not as banging our heads as fast as maybe we used to, but we're still getting into it and just, it's awesome. I think, it feels a lot more down to earth than a lot of the stuff I've been a part of in the past. And I think maybe that's just sort of kind of finding your groove in the world a little bit and having something that can be a good outlet, but also doesn't have a lot of the youthful drama and expectations and all that stuff. It's just a little bit more, I think it's a little bit more okay to be somebody who works a full-time job and, maybe has a family or has other things going on in life, but still wants to go out to shows and have a good time and, not quite be normal.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot and we haven't played any of your music yet. Do you want to play Consume the Remains?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let people know what we're talking about here.
I, for one, never get sick of that song.
Consume the remains.
The number one top 40 single from Doomsday Profit, blowing up the charts right now as we speak.
It is never not shocking to see the person behind those kind of vocals. It's always some like normal ass dude that's just like growly as fuck. It's crazy.
Yep, that's me. And Trad. I was hearing Trad's vocals a good bit on this one through the playback. He did some.
Don't
really
forget
good
me. I
background
was on that
vocals.
one too, man.
Well, I was hearing Trad more, but Ryan did background vocals on it too. So we got kind of the whole gang vocals on the choruses there.
Nice. And what about the video?
So
that video has a little bit of fucking everything in it.
Yeah.
We had to put some dinosaurs in there for Trad.
And Dark Sprite Videos is the
okay. I know them.
He did it. Yeah, he's done a bunch of cool stuff. He's done videos for Church of Misery and Jess and the Ancient Ones and Crystal Spiders. I've been following him on Instagram for forever. And when Trad was looking for people to do videos for Crystal Spiders, I said, check this dude out. This is cool. They developed, a working relationship that way. And we were all just like, yeah, we should totally do that. I think it's just a good match. And it was.
Nice.
We were all happy. It was one of those things that was just super easy. We said, hey, we like your work. You want to work with us? And he was like, cool. I like your work. Let's do it. And then we sent a little bit of money and he made a video.
Nice. I love that style of like. We talked about it with Empty Black too on their podcast because they have a similar type of style in their video, and it's just like that specific era of like cinema that he takes clips from is just always so gnarly, and it fits so well with like heavy music for some reason. It's just like
I think
it's not too polished, but it's not like so old that it's goofy. It's like that perfect little mix of both.
You still get the film grain. You get kind of that vintage distortion, the sort of like tube-driven TV format. And I think the way that all of the images and scenes are cut together is really interesting. I think that's really where the storytelling is. You take all this archival footage, but the story is told in the editing room, right? And that whole process just blows my mind, sifting through all of the different frames and trying to figure out where to fit things together is. So
yeah, and they kick out a lot of videos too, Dark Sprite. So they must have just so fucking much footage, and either they've just like memorized it all, they know where they can just put stuff in, or I don't know. I mean, how many hours and hours and hours must they have gone through to find enough for not only a music video, but like a music video every 2 weeks they put out.
Yeah, you don't question things that just seem to work. I honestly can't fathom how it's all put together. So I think if I thought too much about it, I would just stay awake at night thinking about it for weeks. So I'm just super stoked on how it turns out, and it makes me feel like a real band.
Yeah.
There have definitely been steps along the way that, I think we all kind of look at each other and go like, oh man, we're a real band now. Like, oh man, this like, oh, we're playing a show. Oh, we're going on tour. We're opening for Black Tusk and Resin and US Christmas. And
that's
when it was just you and I, when you came to me with this idea for like, hey, just kind of an excuse to play music with friends, just the two of us, late December 2018, you're like, if this goes somewhere cool, maybe we'll play a show at the Cave, which is a small venue in Chapel Hill, like in a basement,
70 capacity.
That was kind of where our heads were at going into this. So yeah, we've had a lot of those moments like, oh, we're a real band.
Yeah.
Where did Trad come from? Because I know he's had a pretty big year with Crystal Spiders. I mean, they're on Ripple, right? And they just put
Yeah,
a
he's had a
upcoming
he's had a
album
big
and-
couple years.
Yeah.
Trad's a road dog, man. He's been in bands for, I mean, as long as I've known him before. So actually, I was in a punk band, a short-lived punk band with Trad back in 2010, which is how I first met him. And then we kind of went our separate ways for about a decade. And then when Brian and I were starting this band, we saw that at the same time, Trad had Crystal Spiders coming out with some new stuff. And we're like, oh, hey, Trad, shit. I wonder if he wants to overcommit himself in another band that's kind of sort of similar to what he's already doing.
I see you're playing in a Doom band. You want to do another one?
So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, you want to play some music again? And he invited us down to his house in his basement. We jammed. We hit it off. It worked. It became Doomsday Profit. He's really done a fantastic job taking it's really Brian's ideas and riffs and really arranging them into songs. I think that was probably our first we're a real band moments, was when Trad took our ideas and formed them into like legitimate songs. I think that was a good first step in our evolution. We played one show, just the three of us. It went really well. But we realized, I think, that there was maybe a little bit something missing. And he had previously played in another band with Kevin. So he brought Kevin in, and Kevin adds that spacey psychedelic guitar magic that kind of rounds us out. And we've been the four of us since October 2019.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, we played one show late September 2019 as a trio and went, that was cool, but it needs something.
And within like a month, we got Kevin onboarded, and Kevin just like, one of the reasons Trad wanted to bring Kevin on board was because they're just so good playing together. They understand each other while playing, and Kevin's a super, super quick learner. So we were able to onboard him super quick. And I think we played our second show within a month or something of our first show.
Kevin and Trad also both have a good bit of experience playing as sidemen, kind of coming in and jumping into somebody else's band and having to pick it up pretty quickly and fit in, which is a huge skill and talent in and of itself. I'm one of those people. I can only play the stuff I write. I couldn't jump in and just jam fluidly with other people. Kevin and Trad can, you can kind of plop them down and they're going to sound good. So Kevin came in that first day, and he had just listened to a couple rough demos we sent him, and noodled a little bit at home. But he came in the first day, and I think we all kind of looked at each other after the first 20 minutes or so, and we're just like, yeah, this is going to work. This is what it needs. There was not a lot of there wasn't much of a step back or any real instruction needed in terms of what we were like. He got it, fit right in. He and Trad had that chemistry from playing together in the past that it fell right in. It was we were very lucky and fortunate to have gotten those two to join us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like, and I don't know if it's them, their addition to the band or not, I guess, but there's plenty of bands that are just like brutal and heavy, and there's something about your album that rides that line between just being brutal and heavy, but also very accessible to like the more like stoner rock people, not just like the stoner doom people. And I've said this on the podcast before, like I don't always do very well with like the super slow and low sludge stuff. Like I really come from Truck Fighters, Queens of the Stone Age type of perspective, and I've gotten better. I've gotten my horizons have expanded over the last few years. But I mean, for someone like me that comes from that angle, like it's an album that really is just so fucking heavy, but still rides that line of like, you'll still enjoy it even if you come from that line, and you'll still enjoy it over there too. And there's something that's very like accessible, but also just being like this really fucking, you know, heavy weighted sound too. So, and wherever that comes from, I mean, that's a really cool part of In Idle Orbit. I feel like.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's really kind of stood out to us. Certainly,
yeah, that's what we like about it too.
Yeah, we have our hypothesis as to where that comes from, and primarily it's because we all intersect around this genre, but it's not necessarily where 100% of all of our respective listening lies. I mean, I have more long-form psychedelic prog tendencies. Trad comes at it from more of like a groovy Truck Fighters. That's the kind of
stoner rock, blues rock kind of
yeah,
vibe.
Exactly.
Everything he does has a swing to it. He hates playing straight.
And Brian's all about the like oppressive, slow sludge, and then Kevin comes at it from more of like a, you know, jam band Grateful Dead angle. So we're all kind of not fighting musically, but I think complementing each other, but stretching, I guess, where each individual is coming from and kind of growing that and bringing those unique flavors into our collaboration as a band unit.
Yeah. And I think that at first that's like a surprising thing to hear, whereas like you have some band that sounds like this and all the members are like, no, I like this stuff and I like that stuff. At first that's surprising, but the more I've talked to people, I think it's essential. I think that you have to have that, because if you were all into sludge doom, you would just be a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a sludge doom band. But the fact that you don't all come from that same point is why you sound the way you do and why people find you interesting. And I think that it's been essential to every band that I've ever talked to on here is that, you know, they've been more extreme than yours too. I mean, the Age of Truth, like Kevin was like a huge Phil Collins fan or something. And it's like, it's like people come from all sorts of different interests and they form this like heavy music regardless.
Ryan gave you the tip of the iceberg, if we're being honest. I mean, it's a very good summary, but I think we all listen to so much different stuff. Trad and Kevin have both played with singer-songwriters, alt country, pop rock, that kind of stuff.
I played in a hip-hop band in college.
Oh yeah.
I came from, you know, my primary role in the scene was as a writer and a journalist, but the scene that I was coming up in was punk and hardcore, and then I got more into metal, and I love the very slowest of the slow. I also love the fastest of the fast. I'm a huge death and grindcore fan. So, and I also love long form abstract psychedelic rock, you know, groovy stoner rock. I mean, speaking for myself, and I think you'd see similar if you were to talk to any of my bandmates individually. We all we listen to so many different things, like sitting in the van and playing records back and forth. I think this last trip we listened to Autopsy, we listened to Humphreys McGee, we listened
the new Endless Boogie record, which
we listened to Endless Boogie, which we all loved dearly. We listened to His Golden Messenger. It's just it's all over the place, and I think we like to bring in whatever it is that we like and sort of embrace that contrast. If I come in with a old school death metal riff, I know that Kevin and Ryan are going to try to put some space around it, and Trad's going to try to make it swing. Like that's just what's going to happen. So I can rip off whatever I want. and bring it in. And, you know, if I steal a riff from Napalm Death, it's not going to sound like Napalm Death by the time we're done with it.
Yeah. See,
and
that's when I like people using bands to describe things, because I've read some descriptions like on Instagram, and they're like, we're like Queens of Stone Age mixed with Melvins, and I'm like, I want to fucking hear what that sounds like. And that, when you say like Napalm Death mixed with whatever it might be, like, then I get really excited, because then I'm like, that's what I want. I don't want to hear another Napalm Death. I don't want to hear another
Right.
Queens of Stone Age. I want to hear Queens of Stone Age mixed with Napalm Death. What does that sound like? Then I
No,
get really
they've already done that thing. So, but I mean, I also think, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. We're all pulling influences from different places, and that's where the sort of the chemistry of what you mix together is what makes it your own. It's not that the ingredients are all original. I mean, there's 12 notes in the Western scale. We're all playing the same 12 notes.
We're taking elements of things that we like from a variety of sonic sources and finding ways to make them, not make them fit, but make them work in the context of what we are as a band. I was interviewing for Global Garage, an awesome psych band out of the Bay Area, Spiral Electric, and Clay was talking about, if there's something that you want to do, that you want to bring to a song, I mean, you don't need to make it a side project. If it's something completely different, find a way to incorporate it into what you're already doing, and that'll make it so much stronger and compelling and more you, and further your identity as a band and musician.
That's an interesting idea, because there are some bands that I feel like have put out albums that are so far from what I liked about them, where I'm like, you guys should have just called this something else. You could have made this a side project. But it is disappointing to get into a band and just hear them reproduce the same album over and over. I'm a person that likes bands exploring. And I know that's not always the case. I mean, if you're a Slayer fan, like, you want to hear Slayer every time.
Oh yeah, and
but I'm a Queens of Stone Age fan, so when Queens of Stone Age makes a new record, I know it's not going to be like the last one. That's already a given. That's just off the table, you know.
Well, and I think, you know, that's one of those things. Some bands, they strike on a formula that is all theirs, and they own it, and they just control that territory for 40 years. Slayer, AC/DC, Motorhead, like those, they're great. They're all classic for a reason. But they do what they do. They do it well. You know, we're from Raleigh. Anybody playing anything remotely heavy in North Carolina owes a huge debt to Corrosion of Conformity. And that is a band that has reinvented itself over and over and over again. They're like the David Bowie of heavy rock. And they never changed their name. They had plenty of lineup changes, but, you know, it was always COC. And I don't think there's a COC fan alive who likes every single thing they've ever done. But that's also part of what, like, makes their legacy so cool. And, you know, I think it's that kind of like, well, why can't we bring in, you know, they were a hardcore band that covered Fleetwood Mac from the Peter Green era on Eye for an Eye. Like, the metal and hard rock was always there. It's just, and that wasn't something that was cool in hardcore, but they were like, oh, we don't care. So, you know, I think that's definitely, it's in the water, I guess. You know, you can't grow up around that. You can't grow up around Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Durham with such disparate scenes and at different times, where, you know, Raleigh was huge for alt country in the 90s. COC obviously led the hardcore scene there in the 80s. Chapel Hill was huge for indie rock in the late 90s, early 2000s. Durham had its own sort of weird sort of East Coast Olympia scene of, you know, anti-folk and idiosyncratic, all kinds of stuff, where you'd have a metal band and a folk band playing shows together because it was just what people did in Durham at that time. And that's kind of the atmosphere where we all sort of came of age, and it was never weird to not be into everything.
Yep.
So what's Doomsday Profit gonna do then? You gonna make some electronic music, some acoustic songs, some
Don't tempt us. Ryan keeps trying to bring a synth into band practice. I have to put the kibosh on that. It's gonna happen eventually,
Yep.
I'm sure.
It'll happen.
I don't know. I can say the direction that we're going in with some of the new stuff that we're working on is a little bit more spread out, a little bit more spacious, I guess. So probably leaning a little bit more on the psychedelic side, but there's some, we're not getting away from the heaviness by any means. And I'm not going to start singing in a falsetto anytime soon. So, I think it'll still be recognizable as Doomsday Profit from the first record. I'm always trying to slip some more bangers in there and just really get down and dirty and keep it mean. But, it's a nice sort of creative tension. We don't have fights or argue about it, but there's that kind of push and pull between, getting everybody what they want. And at the end of the day, a good riff is a good riff. And I may say, you know what, I want to write a mid-tempo beat down sludge metal song. But the riff we come up that day is like Hawkwind in space, beyond space. And we just got to go with it, because if it's a good riff, it's a good riff.
Yep.
Yeah, see where it goes. Cool. Let's do the Fuzz Round. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're
I've
all
been ready.
we've all loosened up, talked over an hour already. Let's do the Fuzz Round.
Well, you got us talking about music, Ryan. That's kind of on you.
I love it. That's good. What would you make this album called? How would you slightly fuzz this album?
Catch of the day.
There you go.
Can't beat that. Nice. Ooh, I like this. Death comes for us all.
Or diabetes comes for us all.
That's just one of many ways to go.
Name 3 songs.
I was going to say Mansplaining, the album.
Yeah, I think this was actually from an ad back in the day, like a magazine ad.
Yeah, this definitely has one of those old school dish soap ads where it's like, oh, your husband will not like you if the dishes aren't clean.
This is one of the most offensive ads that I always see pop up when I look for stuff. And this one was like, is it always, I forget how they worded it. Is it always illegal to hit a woman or something like that?
Oh.
I think that's what this one was called.
Sometimes I think things couldn't be any worse, and then I remember that for all of history they have been much, much worse.
Then you remember that the 50s existed.
Ooh. I'm pretty sure I've seen this band. I'm pretty sure they've played Chapel Hill. That seems like a band that would have played Chapel Hill at some point.
This is definitely a real band. Yeah, I forget what they're called, but this is definitely a real band.
So I would think, this looks more like a promo photo than an album cover to me, like something you'd see in the liner notes.
Yeah.
But this band is definitely going to have, there's one guy in a cape who's breaking dress code to wear a cape.
I got that fucking cape on.
Is that like a golden dollar sign necklace? I can't quite see.
Yeah.
Yes, it 100% is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess they were allowed to accessorize, so maybe he didn't break dress code. He just, because the other guy has two of them have wristbands.
Tunnel of Love That's what this band is called, by the way. Tunnel of Love. I just remembered.
That tracks.
Wow. I could
That
not.
tracks.
That 100% looks like a Tunnel of Love.
Yeah.
I think that's the name of the album, Tunnel of Love, and we're pointing at this area right here. That's the
Oh
tunnel.
no, we're all aware of what the tunnel is. It's quite prominently displayed in that photo. Yeah. Something tells me that band could really blow up.
But
I love this.
Put a cat on it and Brian's there.
I want to use this for a cover and just do Cat Scratch Fever. And it'll be a very faithful recording, like note for note, so that nobody ever has to listen to Ted Nugent ever again. I'm going to call this Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m.
2021.
Yeah, or that.
Well, Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m., 2021.
Every Wednesday, 3 p.m.
Oh, where's Trad?
Those aren't dinosaurs, man. Those are demons. Those are demons from hell. Look at those Puritan folks shocked by their horrific appearance.
It's like, oops, I showed some elbow.
That's I don't know. I feel like that's like the little golden book of Electric Wizard songs. Baby's first super coven. Is that a hummingbird feeder?
Don't know. It's a hummingbird feeder or like a bottle of Gatorade.
Or a suicide pact beverage.
Oh, is it Flavor Aid?
They drank the Kool-Aid.
I was recently corrected that it wasn't the drink the Kool-Aid is not a correct statement. The Jonestown Massacre, in fact, used Flavor Aid. Apparently, I was talking to somebody in the PR department for Kool-Aid.
Those cheap bastards. They couldn't even spring for the good stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna go out on a high note. If you're gonna have powdered fruit drink,
get the good
get Kool-Aid. I feel like this is what happens when you expect the instead of like the aliens coming to rescue you, you expect the Kool-Aid Man to burst through this stone tomb and go, oh yeah,
Zombie Kool-Aid Man.
We're gonna, you're the chosen few. You get to ride on to infinity with the Kool-Aid Man, but it's just an advertising mascot. So instead, it's just a sad group suicide.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
That is.
This is what happens when you give a black metal band a synthesizer.
Is this a warning of things to come?
It better not be. This looks like the Warlocks of Disco. I think instead of Spinal Tap had Smell the Glove, right? So this has got to be Smell the Finger. He's got the ET finger. And
there's a lot going on with this photo, and there's a lot that's wrong with it. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like, is that stuff from the room in 2001 Space Odyssey too, or is that just the vibe that it's going?
I think it's just the vibe.
Okay. I mean, look at that symbolism. There's the black and the white juxtaposed with the white statue and the black chair. There's so much to unpack.
It's an empty chair.
It's an empty chair
behind him. He's holding a guitar. I thought it was a lightsaber.
He's holding a guitar, but what is this guy holding over here?
A cane.
Oh, it's a metaphor for aging. You put down the guitar and you pick up the cane, but you still have the spirit of rock.
Yeah, but how come like he's wearing black? He looks way cooler.
I don't know if we'll ever unpack the mystery.
He's definitely more like Gene Simmons, and the guy in white's definitely more Peter Criss, like on the makeup scale of badassery. Like nobody wants to be the Catman. Come on.
Right. Right. Yeah, this is a tough one. This one, however.
Oh, wow.
It's Dr. Roxo on the left.
He does cocaine.
Simple. This is clearly Raz Blemmy Mataz, and the album is called I Do Cocaine.
At Noel Fielding, hanging out with Roxo.
He stole the bass from either Bootsy Collins or High Priestess Nighthawk.
It looks like they tried to go to Eurovision, but got lost in a back alley.
It's what happens when you buy Eurovision on Wish.com.
Brian, I have to tell you, I did get a new bass recently. I think you're really gonna like it.
Is it a sparkly green star?
How did you know?
Yeah.
I like that he coordinated his makeup to match the guitar. That is,
I think they all
and
did.
the accent. Oh no, he's going all in on that like green and silver.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to respect the commitment to the bit. You really.
I mean,
do.
it looks like the clown went overboard. Like everyone looks like they belong in this like, David Bowie spinoff, but then you have the random...
there's a gradual increase because the guy in the red and black has the David, like the Aladdin Sane.
It's not a gradient. It's a stark jump from Noel Fielding to Roxo.
That's true.
Yeah, he just looks like he's photobombing.
It's rock and roll McDonald's right there.
The fuck is up, Denny's?
Yeah. Oh, that's the best. What the fuck is up?
Yeah,
Denny's?
so you get references to Wesley Willis and viral videos when you talk to Doomsday Profit.
I expected nothing less. You guys
somehow
have
we managed not to talk about Brass Against. So
oh my god. Okay, hold on. I worst offense of that video. The shower or wearing one's own shirt while performing?
The worst offense was clearly the guy scooping it up off of the stage and then throwing it.
That is very true. That is true.
Yeah.
That should have been the third option. That was not consensual and not cool.
See. Also, how was there enough of it to scoop with two hands?
I've never scooped liquid off of a hard surface before with my hands. That must
in that volume.
Must have been a lot. Do you know what we're talking about?
The chick that peed on somebody?
Yeah, dude got pressure washed.
Yeah.
I didn't look into it much because I was like, I don't know. I don't care. But didn't like the guy want it? Wasn't he like, okay? She was like, I'm going to pee on somebody.
It was
like, go for
yeah,
it.
It was fully
the
consensual.
people who got it thrown on them afterwards may not have been as into it. But
yeah.
It's very strange.
But,
I didn't look into it much. I didn't read the story, but I did see the pictures and the memes. And I was like, what the fuck?
I mean, it's all you really need.
Who is that chick, though? What is that band?
They're like a Rage Against the Machine brass cover band or something.
Oh.
They play System of a Down and Rage Against the Machine songs, but they have trombones. It's basically like if your buddy's high school ska band got somebody who was on The Voice to help them sing covers so they could make more money.
I don't want any of those things that you just said.
And then also there's, pee.
And the pee stuff.
I mean, the thing that's like, they apologized for it and said, this is not who we are as a band.
Yes, it is.
But your name is forever stained, no matter how you wash that stage.
Why even apologize for it? The singer was like, "Who wants to get peed on?"
Just G.G. Allen that shit and make it you. Just
say we're the band that pees on people.
Yeah,
you want it? Yeah.
Because I don't understand. You break up and you're like, we're gonna do different things, or because people are going to come to their show and they're not going to get peed on, but that's what they're expecting. You
got to mitigate expectations. Otherwise, people are just going to expect it every time. And really, all you want to do is go with the flow.
She's like, now I got to drink a bunch of water every day before I go on stage. Now I got to make sure my bladder's full. This sucks. She's like, I wish I would have never peed on that first guy.
Yeah.
Poncho merch, though.
It's like Gallagher.
Exactly. It's exactly like Gallagher.
Just start beating watermelons on stage, and
it's like I fucking hate watermelons. I never wanted to do this.
Where do you go from there? I guess, maybe write an original song. That would be a shocking thing for them to do.
That's the perfect way to wrap up this podcast, by the way.
That would be a really shocking thing for them to do, because they're a cover band. And if they came out and were like, hey, you just heard 17 minutes of Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down with trombones, but now we're going to play an original song.
I didn't even realize that they were a cover band. That's so whack.
Doesn't that make it even wilder? Like, it wasn't just some outrageous band. It was a cover band.
That's terrible. That's more offensive than the pee.
I don't think cover bands should even be allowed to sell merch.
No.
You could just sell bootleg versions of the bands you cover. Open an Etsy store.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that they were a cover band. That's terrible. That makes the whole story even more stupid.
We have a pretty bleak worldview as a band, but every now and then something comes along that just brightens your day. You got to find those little splashes of gold in everyday life.
God damn it, Brad.
And with that, the Slightly Fuzz podcast. Thanks for being here, Doomsday Profit.
Thank you so much for having us. This was a blast.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I did like In Idle Orbit. It's a great album. I hope everyone checks it out. I hope you guys have a bunch more shows planned for next year, and hope you head towards the Midwest at some point.
Hopefully we will. Like I said, that we've got a few things up in the air that we need to sort out, but definitely the goal is to get as far as we can get within our limited windows of time.
Right on.
And I'll let you know when we head towards Illinois.
Cool. Talk to you later. See you guys.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.